Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
We're watching Fanboy.
A fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
I assume Tom.
Gentlemen, we are talking about Reading Rainbow today, an incredible documentary that you made called Butterflies in the Sky. But to make the same joke that everyone else has made this morning, you don't have to take my word for it.
Nice.
Great. Good. Nice job.
Yeah. Look, I know I'm not the first person or the last person today that's going to make that joke, but that is a definitive line of the series that lasted 26 years. And
Sure.
It's such an impactful line because everyone's giving their book review at the end of the episode. And it's like, listen, if you want it, give it a shot. If not, it's up to you. And you know, that was so important as a kid because, you know, like the documentary shows, LeVar doesn't talk down to the audience, or at least didn't, because it was 26 years and the show's no longer on the air. What's it like going back and revisiting a show that you possibly grew up on? And then on top of that, you know, getting LeVar to agree to it, remembering that Run DMC was on there and Whoopi Goldberg is in the documentary and they had a friendship through Star Trek The Next Generation and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, we did both watch the show. It was a really important part of our childhoods, you know, and I think that the memory of it, especially LeVar and especially those book review kids and some of the books, you know, that was all kind of in the back of our minds. And then, yeah, when we started talking about this, getting to sort of revisit the show, rewatch episodes, you know, we had like some real core memories that were just kind of popping up watching these episodes, things we hadn't thought about in a very long time. And it was amazing. Yeah, Run DMC. I mean, I do remember seeing that. I mean, LeVar is on the show with Kermit the Frog, and you know, I hadn't thought about that in forever as well. So it was really inspiring. And yeah, I'll let Brett speak to LeVar to meeting him.
Yeah, Brad wrote this amazing pitch for this idea. We just kind of like thought of this and actually just wanted information about the show. We Googled it, and there was only thing online that we found was like one really good article. No videos, no short documentaries, nothing that was meeting what we were wanting to get out of like revisiting the show. So it was almost that simple of like, we had just finished another film and we were like, could this be our next film? Like, it couldn't be, could it? And before you know it, Brad wrote a pitch deck and we somehow got it to LeVar. And the next thing you know, he called our phone and someone was like, LeVar's going to talk to you in a minute, so can you stay on the line? And we were like nervously pacing our rooms on the phone, and he was like, I love your ideas, I watched your other films, and I think you're the right people to make this film. Let me know what I can do to help.
And so for the next interview, you're going to tell everybody else that there was a lot of arm twisting and hair pulling to get him on board, because this sounded just too smooth to get him on board for this.
I know, we had to pinch ourselves. It was crazy. I mean, we weren't nervous, you know. We reached out to his CEO, Sankita Patel, first, and of his company, LeVar Burton Entertainment, and you know, we knew we were dealing with something that was very important. That was definitely out there. Like, it was very well known that Reading Rainbow was, you know, the thing that LeVar sort of prizes in his career the most because of its, you know, how important it is and what it meant to kids. You know, his mother being an English teacher and these things. So we were nervous, you know, that we knew we couldn't do it without him, and we knew we couldn't do it without his blessing. So yeah, it was great.
You know, you mentioned, Brad, earlier, core memories and stuff that stuck out to you. When you went back and saw those episodes as an adult, and especially with modern sensibilities, being much more sensitive than what it was in the 80s and the 90s, what's it like to revisit those now as an adult, realizing modern sensibilities versus the time period? And how did it affect those core memories? Like, did it live up to what you remembered? Or was it a totally different aspect of the show that just stuck out?
Well, I think it was inspiring in a different way and in ways we didn't anticipate. So, like, you know, sort of realizing that it was documentary for kids, basically, at its core. And I think that wasn't something that even when we started talking about this, that we weren't like really thinking about. But once we started watching the episodes and sort of seeing how each episode progressed, we realized that that's exactly what it was. You know, the books were an entry point into some sort of exploration out in the world, be it with LeVar sometimes or without him, but always dealing with real people doing real things. And that's, I mean, that was an aha moment for Brett and I both, like, sort of realizing that this may have had an impact on us wanting to be documentarians. I think in terms of the content then versus now, I feel like PBS has always been ahead of the curve, so their sort of efforts to choose a diverse selection of books and cover all kinds of different topics and stories from different perspectives was already there, back in the early 80s. And so they were, I mean, watching it now, it's like, this is the kind of content we need right now, we feel.
And when you get to watch those episodes again now as an adult, possibly if you have your own children or nieces and nephews, what's it like, seeing it through their eyes as you're going through the footage, trying to whittle down 26 years into 90 minutes?
Kids now watch it in such a different way. It's hard to compete, I guess, with what they're watching on YouTube. But when I showed some of my family who, nieces and nephews, and kind of talking to them about how they just took camera and sound equipment to like piggyback what Brad was saying, like it was documentary style television for kids. Like they just had an idea that they saw in a book and then went to that location, met the people, embedded themselves, almost like Werner Herzog did in his early documentaries. He would just go somewhere and start filming, and they would have these amazing, authentic moments with real people. And I think that resonated for sure with when I did show my nieces and nephews when we first started working on this. I actually did wonder what they would think about it. And I think once, especially if you show them like the volcano episode, they get really locked in. And I think it's interesting to kind of see it through their eyes, like you're saying. And even today, there's still nothing like it. It doesn't compare at all like what's on YouTube.
And was there a specific book that you picked up because of the show? Like you saw the kids' reviews at the end, you're like, that's the one I got to go to the library and get.
Definitely. I had all the Frog and Toad books, and I know they reviewed those books on the show, and the Miss Nelson is back, and those books as well. Like I would get those from the book fairs, but really, they put the sticker on the book fairs, and so you're connected to the show. You're watching the show, you see the sticker. It's like, I'm going to get this whether I know what it is or not because it's Reading Rainbow. So, yeah,
book fair, seeing the sticker, that was like the ones I gravitated towards, especially if I had seen the show. It was like it was like magical to be able to remember that I saw an episode, and then here's the book that they were holding up in the show in my school. That was one I was definitely trying to get.
And when you get to sit down with LeVar to make the documentary, and of course, Butterfly in the Sky is the perfect title for this because, butterflies flutter, we're always looking up to the stars. And here we are, that's the opening line to the theme song. What's it like for you to sit there and start picking his brain? And what is a question that came up during the interviews when you sat down with him through the process and go, oh, I would have never thought to ask this prior to him opening up to us?
That's a good question. I think I'll try to answer your second question and think about it while I'm talking, but I think that sitting down with him was, obviously on one level very intimidating because he's someone that we, admire, look up to. He's a celebrity, all those reasons that you're like, oh gosh, I'm a little nervous around this person. But he was so giving with his time and so open to help us get what we needed for the film through his words. He sat down with us for like over 4 hours, and it was just such a fruitful interview because of how open he was. I got to think about your question because I think back and I'm thinking about the list of questions that I had, and it was long. So I was just like, there was a lot of things we were trying to cover. I'll think about that. I don't have an answer right away.
And we rented out
you, Brett, in the meantime, while Brad tries to figure it out.
Me and Tony Hardiman set up that interview, and it was in the LA Public Library, and we were able to like rent it out because it was closed. And things just came together, and we were watching his car on the app like get closer and closer, and we were just kind of nervous. And like Brad said, when he got there, he was just the nicest person in the world. And honestly, we've probably never done an interview with anyone where all 4 hours were magical and everything he said could be used in the movie. Like, it was the hardest thing to decide what to use and not use, because everything he said was just so incredible. I mean, we were like all emotional at times. It was like a roller coaster of emotions during that 4 hour interview. Something I won't forget.
And speaking of that, because that leads into my follow-up question was, what ended up on the cutting room floor that you were so eager to use, but just didn't fit the narrative into 90 minutes?
So much.
I mean, yeah, I mean, LeVar, there was a lot of things that he talked about, in his career, coming up through Roots and sort of those things that, we couldn't fit in because it's a doc about reading Rainbow, although we do touch on his career. I think there were additional production stories and things, that we were told, like there was an episode on that had a book that had something to do with bacteria, and they had to like take all these fruits and vegetables and basically let them rot. And like one of the PAs was sitting there with this stuff for like, overnight, and it was just crazy. And, so definitely lots of little moments like that that we wish we could have, included more of. But I mean, we feel pretty good about the story we told, because I think we set out to tell a story about Reading Rainbow that reflects our memory of Reading Rainbow, which is positive and beautiful and like really reflects a love of books and a love of reading. And yeah, that's what we wanted to do.
And was there ever an episode idea? I'm sorry, go ahead, Brett.
No. I was just gonna geek out and say Star Trek was probably, like, he talked. We went pretty deep into Star Trek in one moment, and there's some pretty awesome stuff that we'll probably include on some kind of physical release that I think people like.
Which I want a physical copy of this when it comes time for all the bonus features. But
Sure.
Was there ever also an episode that he pitched that like this would be a fantastic idea that PBS is like, maybe the audience wouldn't be ready for it at this point?
I'm trying to remember, because really it was Twyla Liggett and Larry and Cecily Lancet, the co-creators who would have been the ones sort of really engaged in what books were chosen. And I don't remember Twyla telling us about any books that she pitched that didn't get made into a show. Now, obviously, they did a show about childbirth, and there's an actual live childbirth in the show. So that was challenging, I think, for them to figure out a way to present this thing that they wanted to, and keep it okay for a children's television show. So they definitely faced challenges in how to communicate the books, I think, from day one. But it seemed like whatever they went for, they got it, unless it was publishers not wanting to let them use the books in the early days, which we talk about too. So,
I mean, you guys pulled off an incredible documentary, taking nearly 3 decades and whittling it down into 90 minutes, which is almost virtually impossible. So that's something in and of itself that's worth watching in this doc. When you get to sit there and you get to post-production, you had the 4-hour interview with them, you talked to everybody else that was involved, and now here you are piecing the story together. How does that process look for you as documentarian filmmakers? Because there is the narrative, but sometimes the initial narrative of what you wanted to tell and where we end up doesn't always look the same.
I think that's what we try. That's like, it's like our motto almost, is like, we have an idea and we talk about it and we try to plan as much as we can, but we love when things get derailed in a great way, and things go in directions that we never expected. And I think we always try to be open to that and follow those, leads. So if someone brings up something during an interview and Brad's written all the questions and we have an idea of how this is going to go, and the interview leads us somewhere else, that could dictate how the rest of the interviews could go. And we try to be open to that. But Brad, I mean, this is why I'm not an editor, because of what you just said about how much footage there was to go through of 26 years of shows and then all the interviews we got. So yeah, I mean, Brad killed it.
You know, the film had its debut at Tribeca, and it's been all over the place throughout the film festival circuit. You know, it had its premiere on March 17th. What's it like, the reaction of people that are in our age group that saw the show during its first run and now get to go back and revisit it, you know, as an adult, either with their kids or trying to relive their youth, and seeing what you put together for us?
I mean, honestly, people seem to love the film. I mean, I'm always, I think we're both always like, we can be a little doom and gloom at first in terms of how something we make is going to be received, or you get too close to something, you don't know how audiences are going to receive it, and you're nervous about that. But really, with this film, I mean, audiences at film festivals and then audiences through our AMC run, um, I mean, the reaction seems really positive, and people are clapping at the screen and just getting emotional seeing LeVar Burton, on screen. And I think it's just because it's such a positive reflection of the show, it kind of allows people to revisit the show in the way that they remember it, or in the way that it made them feel when they were young, as opposed to it being a story that's like full of twists and turns or negativity. It's a positive film. And I think that just makes people feel happy when they finish watching it. So the response has been great.
Also,
All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brett.
I was going to say one thing that I found was really awesome afterwards was a lot of people who watch it with children they were like, I really want to read more to my kids now. And we found that like really interesting, that was like a sentiment that after a screening, a lot of people left with, is like, I don't read enough and I want to now, like felt really inspired. And that made us feel really good.
Yeah, and that was going to actually be part of my next question, tying it all back into when we were kids and the show teaching us not to read, but to love reading. What are the two of you currently reading?
Well, I have like 3 or 4 things that I'm floating around. There's this book that's kind of like actually my computer's sitting on the Billboard Book of Number One Hits, which is a list of all the number one hits in Billboard over the last however many years. But there's a book about Walt Disney animated films that I've been sort of reading on and off. I'm not reading any fiction right now. So
I started reading that book that Brad recommended to me. I didn't told you, Brad, but it's that MTV book, a book about.
Oh yeah, the oral history one.
Yeah,
I want my MTV. Yeah,
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gentlemen, is there hope for a resurgence of Reading Rainbow at this point?
I don't know. I know that the WNED, who were the original sort of, the public television network in Buffalo, who owns Reading Rainbow, they're always doing things and always sort of generating old content and new content. And I think they have interest in figuring out a way to bring it back. And we fully support that, because we feel like the show is important and special. So fingers crossed.
And before I let you guys go, and I try to find out when a hard copy of this with all the bonus features and the last 3 hours of the LeVar Burton interview goes into it, we do have a connection thanks to you through the Glow documentary that you made in 2012. Because when it had its premiere at the Newport Beach Film Festival, I was there. And through you guys, because of your documentary, I got to reconnect with several of the original Glow girls, and I'm currently still friends with them.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool. Awesome. That's so cool.
Your work has touched us in more ways than one, and Reading Rainbow is another way just to add to it. With everything said and done, what would you like audiences to get from the Reading Rainbow documentary? Where will we be able to find it on VOD? And when can we expect a hard copy for old people like me that like to have the tangible in hand?
In terms of getting out of the film, it's like we said, just a reflection of the show as it was, a love of reading. Those things are the mission of the show, is kind of the mission of this film, I think, like encourage you to read, encourage a way to get kids interested in reading and loving reading, and getting a glimpse at the type of passion and the level of passion and dedication it took from this group of people that we cover to make this show. Those are, I think, the things that we're communicating.
And our, you bring up Glow, and we did Rocket Fire Explosion. Every film we do is exploring our childhood in a way and kind of trying to figure out who we are. And this show was a big part of that. And so if people can watch that and have unlock some core memories and maybe feel like they did a little bit when they were younger and fills them with a little bit of hope, that would be amazing.
I love
Yeah.
it, gentlemen.
And
thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry. Please, release date for for hard copy if that's coming.
The end of this month, it'll be Amazon iTunes. So
the 30th, right?
Yeah, the 30th is the date that has been said. So yes, April 30th, Amazon and iTunes. Go rent it. That'd be great.
Fantastic. And hard copy with bonus features. Can we expect that in end of May, beginning of July, something like that?
We love physical stuff. Like we re-released Rockfire Explosion and Glow with AGFA, and we made a film called Jasper Mall that we want to release and do because we have a bunch of footage with that. So that's always like a really special thing that we do, but it's so early in this release of this movie that we haven't honestly even figured that out. But when we do, I'll email you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. That's how much I love this documentary that I was
awesome.
Please, I need a hard copy of this. This needs to be on my shelf. It's like books.
Awesome.
Like there's certain books that you need on your shelf, and there's certain books that you send back to the library. And this is one of those documentaries, same with film, that you need on your shelf.
Thanks.
Well, that's
Appreciate
awesome.
That,
there is a vinyl release to this. The soundtrack's released, and when you open it, a butterfly comes out. So there already is some physical media that's super limited that I think is out right now, isn't it, Brad?
Yeah, I believe you can if you just search for Butterfly in the Sky, OST, you'll find that double vinyl LP. It's really, really cool.
I mean, they spent so much time on making that vinyl like ridiculous. It's got to be a collector and like instantly, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time talking to me about Butterflies in the Sky, which is hitting Amazon and iTunes and everywhere else on April 30th for VOD and digital purchase. Bradford Thompson, Brett Whitcomb, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to talk to you guys again for anything that you decide to put out.
Well, thank you for your time. We appreciate y'all.